Greg, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast here today. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Let's kick things right off. First off, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk more about Section.
Sure. I mean, serial entrepreneur 6 times, maybe 7 actually now. I think founder and or CEO. And I think the salient point is I'm 63, and so I'm old. And so, past the age of 50, our processing speeds our cognitive processing speeds start to decline, right? And that accelerates that decline after the age of 60. So when I first played around with ChatGPT 3.5, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is going to be the way I stay in the game for 10 more years. I intend to work for 10 more years. Maybe not always running companies or startups, but certainly intend to keep working. And I just thought this is going to be the way I can pull that off. I'll use AI as my kind of cognitive assistant and extend my cognitive life. I think it's testosterone for the brain,
And at what point, actually, first let's go into, for those that maybe are unaware of Section, what Section is, and then I have a couple questions are racing through my head after what you just said there. And by the way, you don't look your age, okay? So whatever you're doing, it's already working.
Yeah, keep talking, and I love it. I love this podcast already. It's the best. Listen, Section's an online school, and we started initially with this idea of teaching people strategy, basically, and with this point of view that business strategy education is an accelerant. So the MBAs are an accelerant for careers, and business education in general are accelerants for careers. And that was a good business, but not a great business, frankly. When generative AI came along, my perspective changed to this is the new accelerant. Knowledge workers that use AI every day in their own workflows will enjoy this kind of acceleration in the short term, in the next few years when everyone else is still kind of figuring this out. So we pivoted the business and the curriculum primarily to teach how knowledge workers can use AI every day. So we don't teach engineering or software development skills. We teach AI for business people and how they can kind of put it to work in their daily workflows.
It amazes me too. Not that I'm not the extremist that some people are. They're like, we're never going to need to code again, right? Not like we'll still be coding, but you see all of these coding schools though, and for what you're doing, we don't see like that as often. But that is the more like we can get people more up to speed on how they should be leveraging AI, right? So like, can you talk to me like in terms of core curriculum, what were some of the things you wanted to make sure you were really focusing on with Section?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as you would expect, how to be decent at prompting. And, prompt engineering is typical Silicon Valley. I mean, we call it prompt engineering to make it sound like you got to be really smart and it's kind of scary and only people in Silicon Valley know how to do it. It really means how to have a good conversation with your AI. But you have to teach it. It's not natural to us. We haven't had this kind of tool before. So you got to give people the basic skills around sort of prompting and having these conversations with their AI. And then after that, you got to make it relevant to their job. Most people want to get home, and watch Netflix. They don't want to work, an extra 2 hours. So the idea is, how do we use AI in your own workflows such you can actually, get your job done, hopefully on time and get home kind of thing. So it's, people want the basics. They want not to be fearful of it. I think anxiety is very high. So a lot of what we're teaching, I think by default, or an outcome of that is lowering people's anxiety about AI because they can frankly see its limitations. And to your point, they can realize, I'll still be needed in most cases. I'll still be doing this job. I'll be doing a little bit differently in the future. So lower anxiety, raise proficiency, and then make it specific to their own, own function. So if they're in marketing, how to use AI to be a better content marketer or a performance marketer or product manager, whatever it might be.
Where do you see some of the people that are your students? Where do you see some of the early mistakes they make when they're first coming in and trying to learn? There's no mistake? Like if you're trying, you're in a good space.
Yeah, there's no mistake, but I mean, I think everybody can bounce off of it. I think AI is not like software. We've never had this kind of tool before. And I think we come into it with some misconceptions, probably because we get it from media or, maybe, someone told us like, hey, I use it instead of Google. It's not search, right? It's not software. It is this very horizontal tool that behaves erratically. Again, we're not used to that. We're used to using software that works the same way every time. It does hallucinate. Again, Silicon Silicon Valley speak for it makes shit up, right? So it's incorrect at least 10% of the time, depending on the kind of conversation you're having. So all those sort of challenges add up to people tend to play with it and bounce off of it and not sort of push through. So it's not a mistake. It's just sort of a reality. You gotta push through, and you got to get to a place where you're comfortable knowing how to use it, and you know when to use it, when not to use it. You don't use AI every time, right? It's not going to perform that well necessarily for certain tasks. So don't force the fit, with AI in your workflow.
We'll say hallucinations can be limited too by how you're prompting, right? Like if you're very vague, like the chances of a hallucination like increase substantially.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have this use case we love, which is we ask AI to be a board member at section. So we have a great board, five board members, but before the board meeting, I send the same deck that I send to the humans. I send it to AI for different AIs. I use Claude and ChatGPT, now Microsoft Copilot as well. And we basically ask AI to pretend to be a board member and adopt different personas, like a really aggressive board member, like typical VC, like where's the growth, more conservative board member, extending the cash runway and kind of getting to break even and so on. And when we do that, one of the things we do is we ask the AI just to restrict its comments and insights to the board deck that we provided. So just by doing that, as you said, in the prompt, just a slight change to the prompt, which is giving AI the direction just to look at the content that we kind of uploaded, just drops hallucinations close to zero, improves the value of the AI output. And by the way, just so everybody knows, AI can get to about 93 to 95% of what a human board member can do. And what I mean by that is we take all the comments from the human board that we record in the board meeting, meaning we record by manually recording. We don't use AI agents in the board meeting. We use humans to record what the board members say. We compare that to what the AI told us before the board meeting. And Claude in particular has been the strongest the past year and usually scores over 90% in terms of the feedback we get from AI versus the human board. So I just think that just shows that no matter how much experience you have, because we have very experienced board members, these AI are pretty smart. And why not use them before meetings like that? Before any high stakes decision, why not ask AI?
Who's your favorite AI board member? What persona?
Well, my favorite. I mean, I go back and forth between the two, right? Because as any CEO does, you live between delusion and reality. And so, I like Claude as the kind of tech, and then I ask Claude to play these two roles: aggressive and then more conservative. And again, as a CEO, your job is to calibrate between those two kind of extremes, I guess.
There was I think it was Sam Altman recently talking about how we've seen such growth in AI over the last year, 2 years. It's been pretty crazy, right, with these new models coming out, and how there's potential for some slowing in the overall growth of how much of a leap these models are making. What do you think about that? And is that like as bad of a thing to have a slower kind of jump in what the next model looks like? I mean, we're not like, if someone gets a new iPhone, they're waiting a year, right? We're not getting a new even a major update on that as often maybe as what we are with AI. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is that an okay thing, and how should people perceive that?
Yeah, I don't think for most of us it's fine. I mean, and to your point, these models are already pretty functional, and we're barely able to use them. If you look at look at all these proficiency surveys, or sort of where we're at in terms of people's ability to use these AI, we're just getting started. Most people can't. So I think for consumers, as end users, we're fine if these step changes are a little more incremental. I'm not sure, though, that's the real story. Meaning, I think that in terms of the big base models having significant leaps in capabilities, that might be slowing. But the reality is that's not the only way to get AI progress. And OpenAI is also showing the other kind of side of that coin, which is new models that are able to do different things, and probably stitching those models together at some point to get those kind of more significant gains. I think it's a story in Silicon Valley, because it's more likely is all this money going to get burned up in terms of investor capital. So I think it's more just kind of an inside the beltway, inside the Silicon Valley story around the model growth is slowing down and model capabilities are slowing down. What about all this money that's being thrown at the problem? Yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of capital lost. And I think, we shouldn't care about that. And I don't think we should be distracted by it. As users, we should be focused on how will my job change and how do I sort of, harness this technology to get my job done. If a bunch of VCs lose a bunch of money because they overinvested too quickly, that frankly always happens in these kind of gold rush moments.
I still hope they're investing in the right thing. You remember back, we had some of these, there's so many still, just like with entrepreneurs, right? This isn't signaling out VCs, but there's so many head scratching moments when you see certain investment. Like, I always think back to, I can't even remember the name of it, so that tells you something, but the audio chat, Clubhouse. Yeah. And the amount of money that was invested into that. Now, I wouldn't deem it necessarily a failure either, because like all these other platforms after that started adopting audio features. But that was, sometimes I see so often heavy investment into things that are just going to be a standalone product and not like a full platform. And that's what it was, right? And that's why LinkedIn had it, and Twitter now X has it. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, that's happening now. You look at a map of AI startups, there's probably 5,000 of them or something like that. And there's probably 10 or 20 in every category. And we've seen the movie before, right? We know that only one or two are going to win in each of these categories. And then some of the categories will get blown away because OpenAI adds that capability to the foundational model, or Anthropic does, and so on. So I just think it's what, entrepreneurs are going to burn a couple, 3 years of their lives, and investors will burn a bunch of capital at the same time, and we'll learn from those things, and we'll, grab features and copy features and integrate them into other products. Again, I think it's sort of, it's what's needed at this moment, and it'll shake out.
I love it. Let's look back a little bit. So you started these other companies. Let's look and say, pick one of them. And how would you have done things differently if AI was at where it is today?
Well, my last company was an enterprise software company, and it was a workforce communications platform, and it was specifically focused on blue-collar workers, so people not in head office using Slack or Microsoft Teams, but people sort of, in the distribution center, in the warehouse, and the, driving the trucks kind of things. And it was a mobile app-based sort of technology platform. That company is now doing about $110 million in revenue, lots of great enterprise customers like Amazon and Boeing and so on. What I would do today with that company, it'd probably be a much lighter product to build. It would likely plug in much easier if it was AI based into all the information systems that are inside the enterprise, and it'd be able to extract what that employee needs to kind of worry about or care about, which is essentially the purpose of workforce communications. I just think it'd be an easier and harder company to build. Easier because the technology is probably going to be, as I said, less heavy. Harder just because you have the same shit. Do you have product market fit? Do you have the right price? Do you have the right sales force? Do you have the right go to market? I don't think everything changes with AI. I think finding enterprise product market fit is hard. Finding it in a repeatable fashion so you can get from 1 to 10 million, 10 to 100, it's hard. So I think I do a lot of the same things, and what I do differently is, build AI natively, both internally and in the product. I do think also internally, we'll start to build our companies AI native, which I think is very exciting. And yeah, are we going to get to one-person companies doing $100 million in revenue? Again, that's sort of the new Silicon Valley benchmark. Right? It used to be unicorns, then it was build a generational company. Now it's going to be build $1 billion company with 10 employees. Yeah, maybe one company pulls that off, right? But or probably not, right? The reality is large companies take a good amount of people, even if they're AI native on the inside. But I do think we should be thinking about building companies that way, which is everybody who works at the company from day one uses AI in every part of their workflows, where it makes sense. That feels like to me a more efficient company to build, a more capital efficient company to build. So that'd be good.
I mean, when we hear those, I do think we'll definitely see more of those companies than we did before AI, right? Was at where it was at. But like you look at Instagram was sub 20, right? When they were when they got acquired for over $1 billion, although they weren't there. I guess it still so much depends on the business model.
But Jared, yeah, Instagram though was like the 1 in 1,000. You know what I mean? Like They're great. It's great to tell those stories. That's the mythology of entrepreneurship. That's the mythology of, Silicon Valley, right? You can be 10 guys and a dog, in a garage and get acquired for $1 billion or $10 million. I mean, it happens once in 1,000. That is the exception to the rule. The rule is not that, right? The rule is it's a 5 to 10 year grind, and and maybe you get an exit. So and I think that's kind of the world that what we all live in from an entrepreneurship perspective.
Shifting focus for this kind of last question here, Greg, what are you most looking forward to from the HumanX conference coming up in March? It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I think we need more and more cutting through the hype. I think that a lot of people are confused, distracted, I've drunk too much of the Kool-Aid and or not enough of the Kool-Aid. Right? I just think that we need places and kind of conversations where we get to sort of what's really going on, what's working, where's the ROI. We're already seeing clients at Section, enterprise clients, where they would deem their LLM deployment a failure already, which is nuts, but you can see what's happening. That the CTO is buying the AI, they're deploying it like it's software. AI is not software. It's not a CRM upgrade or an ERP upgrade, right? It's this new crazy powerful tool. All of its strengths are all of its weaknesses. The fact that it is so horizontal and can do anything is a strength and a weakness for most employees, because it can do almost anything, and how should they use it, right? So we're just at this moment where there's a lot of chaos, too much hype, and not enough learning from what's actually going on. So what I'm most excited about is that, heads of AI will be there, technologists obviously will be there, sort of practitioners will be there, and hopefully sharing, what's working, what's not working, how to pay for this, how do we take time savings, turn productivity into business gain, so the CFO will sign the check, for more and more AI, which is what we want, right? So yeah, I'm just looking forward to smart people who are doing it, actually talking about it, versus hypothesizing or pontificating or or writing about it.
I love it. Greg, thank you so much for joining us here today. Looking forward to future conversations, and thank you so much for your insights.
Absolutely, likewise. I'll see you in
there.
Las Vegas.